Scary Stories, Part 3. It was only at the end of her first year in the forensic lab that Clara realized how often doctors ignored the oddities. Hundreds of bodies, thousands of autopsies, all explained by natural causes, even when there were scraps of tissue under the fingernails that weren't there. Even when the insides were slightly displaced, as the reports put it. It started with a man in his 60s, found in his own home. The autopsy was standard. A heart attack. Except, under his skin, between the muscle fibers, Clara found something that looked like fine threads. Like a spider's web, only metallic. She took a picture, showed it to her superiors. They shrugged. Probably an old operation. Ignore it. 2 weeks later, a woman came in. Died in her sleep. Same threads under her skin. Only now they were fused to the nerves. And next to the brain, in the soft tissues, Clara found a tiny gray lump, like compressed tissue or a fetus? No, not human. Clara didn't sleep that night. She dug through the archives. She found similar cases over the last 10 years. Not hundreds. Thousands. All natural causes. And almost all of the bodies showed signs of network structure under the skin. Clara started making calls. First to coworkers. Then to other states. Some hung up, some refused to talk. One man, a former autopsy technician from Arizona, said, "If you see this, you're already on the list. They only come to those who notice them. Check your skin." The next day, Clara stood in front of the mirror with a flashlight, shining it on her hands. Under the light, on the inside of her forearm, under the skin, she saw a thin line. Almost imperceptible, but metallic. It was moving. She picked up the scalpel. Sliced through the skin. Inside, a glint. She tried to pull the thread, but it slipped back under the skin. It was alive. In a panic, she packed her things, went to her father's house in the country. There was no communication there, and that was comforting. Except, a couple days later, she noticed her father was acting strangely. He stood in front of the mirror for too long, talking to the TV even though it was off. And at night, Clara woke up to a strange sound. A rustling coming from inside her skin, as if someone was scratching the walls of her blood vessels. She picked up the scalpel again. Again, the incision. But now there was nothing. Just blood. And that rustling, now it wouldn't stop. And in the morning, my father sat at the table and just chewed. No food. Just moving his jaw slowly, methodically, black tears streaming from his eyes. He looked up at her and said, "We're together now. In one body." When the neighbors called the police, they found the house empty. No father, no Clara. Only a syringe with some kind of liquid. The analysis showed human brain-like organics in a solution of an unknown metal. Clara's body was found later in the center of town. She was standing in the middle of the square, naked, her skin stripped off like a costume. There were threads on the inner tissues. They were moving. At first, it was just an interface error. Grace worked in the support department of a large provider of smart devices, cameras, door locks, thermostats, voice speakers. People called with complaints. The device turned itself on. Someone said something through the speaker. The camera turned toward the bed even though it was set to the door. Typical paranoia. She explained how to reset the settings, update the firmware. Sometimes she'd turn on remote viewing and see empty apartments. But then one day an email arrived. No subject line, no text. Just an attachment, a video file. She opened it. The video showed a living room filmed with a camera in the corner. Seconds passed. Everything was quiet. Then there was a slight noise, like someone sliding across the floor. And a silhouette appeared in the frame. Human, but too thin. Unnaturally tall, with arms almost to the floor. He stood at the window and just stared at the camera. No face. Just a silhouette. Grace rewound. The tape lasted 12 minutes. And all through that hell he stood motionless, watching. She closed the video. She tried to delete it, but the file disappeared on its own. The folder was empty. Then the office lights went out for a few seconds. A day later, another email arrived. Now with a voice message. A child's voice whispered, "You saw me." She turned off her work email and went home. She checked the cameras in her apartment. Everything was fine. But just in case, she put one by the front door. The next morning, she got a notification. The camera picked up movement in the night at 3:12. She turned it on. A silhouette emerged from the darkness of the hallway. The same one, only closer now. He came right up to the camera. And she saw he had no face, just smooth skin like a mask. But he was looking. She could feel him watching. He bowed his head and whispered, "I'm everywhere." She pulled out all the devices. Cameras, speakers, even light bulbs. Unplugged the internet. She slept with a knife under her pillow. But every night, she heard the floor creak in the dark outside her bedroom door. Someone was slowly walking past. On the fourth night, the door opened. She lay still, not breathing. Someone had entered. She heard breathing. Then a crunch. Something fell to the floor. In the morning, she found a fingernail on the floor. Not her own. She moved out. Took a motel room. No smart devices. Just a mechanical lock. 2 days later, a letter under the door. Inside is a black and white photo. She's asleep. Next to her, on the bed, sits him. Up close. Staring into the camera. There's a note on the back. I don't need Wi-Fi, Grace. I'm in the wires. I'm in the reflections. I'm in the breath. And you've been mine for a long time. That same night, she tried to kill herself. Slashed her wrists. But she survived. Woke up in the hospital. The nurse said, "You're lucky. A neighbor heard you moaning and called an ambulance." Grace whispered, "I live alone." The nurse was quiet. Then, who was the tall man who opened the door for us? Grace didn't check out. She ran away. That same night, she left barefoot in her hospital shirt, her bandages soaked with blood. She didn't remember going down the stairs, she didn't remember going outside. Just the noise in her ears and the sensation of a wire trailing behind her. Straight from her neck. Thin, cold, like an invisible thread. She couldn't go home. She couldn't make a phone call. She no longer trusted anything that transmitted sound or image. Her face no longer belonged to her. She began to fade away. In the mirror, the reflection blinked at the wrong moment. In the photo, she looked just a little different. Smiling when she wasn't smiling. Eyes looking not at the camera but somewhere over her shoulder. One day she saw herself on television. A random channel. Surveillance footage. She's in a store. Standing at the phone booth. But she wasn't there. She's never been there. In the shot, she turns around, puts her finger to her lips. Grace turned off the TV and never turned it on again. She didn't sleep that night. She lay in the motel, staring at the ceiling and trying not to blink. When someone passed outside the window, she didn't even turn her head. She tried not to react, not to provoke anything. She felt that someone was checking her out. Not watching, feeling, through the screens, through the reflections. Checking to see if she was still her. The next morning she went to the pharmacy to buy bandages, scissors, iodine. The clerk was friendly. A little too friendly. He said, "You have a beautiful face." And he added with a slight chuckle, "Too bad it's not yours." She threw everything on the counter and ran out. On the bus she didn't look out the windows. In the reflection of the glass her lips moved before the words. She covered her face with her hood and counted the stops. At the 7th she stood up about to get off. But the doors didn't open. Next, the driver said without turning his head, "I'm getting off here." Next, he repeated. She walked to the exit. Knocked on the door. The passengers were silent. All of them. Didn't move. Only one man at the back of the bus turned around. And it was her face. The same but not tired. Clean, calm, smiling. "We'll make it," he said. It was her voice. Exactly the same. The bus stopped after a minute. The doors opened. She jumped out. She hadn't driven since. Didn't go near the mirrors. Didn't look at screens. Lived in hotels at night on the side of the road where there are no cameras. Where people look worse than their reflections. But even there, even in those places, sometimes someone suddenly recognized her. "Have we met? You were on television, weren't you?" One day she was handed a check at a diner. There was a note on the back. The handwriting was familiar. "It's hers. You're still here, but it won't be for long. I'm already better than you." She's writing it now. By hand. In a notebook. Without light. Without sound. Where the only way to keep something alive is on paper. Not him. Grace ran for a long time. Every night a new city, a new motel, new faces. She wiped sweat from her forehead and tried not to look in mirrors. Fear became a constant companion. But the more she avoided her reflection, the more its shadow haunted her. At night, in one of the next motels, she couldn't sleep. It was quiet. Too quiet. Suddenly she heard footsteps. Slow, as if someone was creeping up. She knew. It was it. It wasn't just her clone, it was her death. When Grace turned, she saw herself. The one standing in front of her, staring calmly. Everything was exactly as it had been before. But now her copy wasn't like her. She was different. Calm. Confident. And her gaze was too cold. "You can't run away," the copy said in her voice. Grace felt fear clench in her chest. It wasn't just an ominous feeling. It was the feeling that her life was no longer in control. She's not her. You can't leave, the copy repeated. You're not you anymore. You're just a part of me. Grace took a step back, trying to escape, but her body wouldn't listen. She felt her strength leaving her. Fear was gripping her. She knew she wouldn't make it. The clone stepped toward her, and when he grabbed her, everything became too fast. He tore at her, tearing her like cloth. Grace tried to fight back, but his strength was overwhelming. It wasn't just strangulation. He was tearing her apart, slowly and mercilessly. Grace screamed, but no sound came out. He wouldn't let her go. Pain coursed through her body and her eyes were foggy. When it was over, her body didn't move. The clone let her go without the slightest regret. He just watched. Everything she had once been no longer existed. He looked at her remains and then smiled. Just like she had once smiled.
Hey, like and subscribe to follow our new videos.